Never underestimate a wild one, she smiled. The cowboy wasn't ready for what came next. Dust rolled over the red plains like smoke, thin and restless, pushed by a wind that never seemed to get tired. The frontier town of Red Hollow sat at the edge of nowhere, a scatter of wooden buildings and iron water tanks, fenced in by open sky and stubborn people. Cal Hart rode in just before sunset. He looked like a man built for hard miles, broad shoulders, sun-dark skin, and a calm face that didn't waste expressions. His hat brim was low, his boots were dusty, and his horse moved like it understood the land better than any map. Cal was a range runner for the Frontier Marshal Service, hired to move supplies and messages between far posts. Sometimes he hunted thieves. Sometimes he escorted families to new settlements. He wasn't famous, but people recognized the badge stitched inside his vest. He stopped at the hitching rail outside the only saloon in Red Hollow. The sign above the door read, "The Driftwood." It creaked in the wind as if it was sighing. Cal tied his horse and stepped inside. Warmth hit him first, then noise, low laughter, clinking cups, boots shifting on rough boards. The air smelled of coffee, dry leather, and old smoke. A piano played in the corner, slow and uneven. He scanned the room the way he always did, not in fear, just habit. Two miners at a table, a trader with a long coat, a quiet woman serving drinks. And at the far end, near the wall of old wanted posters, someone sat alone with her boots up on the chair across from her. She didn't look like anyone Cal had ever seen in Red Hollow. Her hair was dark and tied back with a strip of blue cloth. Her jacket was worn but fitted, stitched with fine thread that looked too clean for a frontier town. A small metallic charm hung near her collar, catching light like a star shard. Her eyes were bright, not in a loud way, but in the way a blade is bright when it is sharp. She noticed Cal the moment he stepped in, not with surprise, with interest. Cal walked to the bar and ordered black coffee. The bartender poured it without asking questions, but his eyes flicked toward the woman in the corner and back to Cal, as if silently warning him. Cal took a sip. It was bitter and strong, just how he liked it. He turned slightly, leaning against the bar, and listened. The town wasn't talking about cattle or rain. It was talking about lights in the sky. "Saw it over the ridge," one man muttered. "Not lightning," another said. "Lightning don't move like that." "Could be smuggler tech," a third guessed, voice low like he didn't want the words to be too loud. Cal's job brought him into strange stories often enough. In the last year, the frontier had changed. Old trails had new towers. Old laws had new machines. And now rumors said a ship had gone down beyond the mesas. Not a trade ship, not a marshal ship, something off-grid. Cal's hand went to the inside of his vest where his folded notice sat. The marshal had sent him for one reason: find the downed object, secure it, report back. He hadn't expected Red Hollow to be this tense. Then the woman in the corner spoke. "Those lights weren't smugglers." Her voice carried without shouting. The room didn't go silent, but it did shift like a horse reacting to a sudden scent. Someone snorted. "Then what were they?" The woman smiled, slow and easy. "Something that doesn't want to be found." Cal turned more fully now. The bartender leaned in close to Cal's shoulder. "That's Lark," he whispered. "Came in 2 days ago. Pays in coin I ain't never seen. Don't ask about where she's from." Cal didn't answer. He watched Lark's expression. She wasn't trying to scare anyone. She looked amused, like she'd already decided what would happen next. Cal finished his coffee and walked toward her table. When he reached it, she lowered her boots off the chair and sat upright, as if she had been expecting him specifically. "You're Cal Hart," she said. Cal paused. "Depends who's asking." She tilted her head. "Someone who prefers to know names before trouble starts." Cal glanced at the metallic charm on her collar. "And you're Lark," she smiled wider. "Looks like the town tells stories fast." "It does when it's nervous," Cal said. He pulled out the chair across from her and sat without asking. "What do you know about the lights?" Lark tapped her fingers lightly on the table. The motion was smooth, controlled. "I know they weren't an accident. I know what fell didn't fall by mistake." Cal didn't like puzzles from strangers, but he liked danger even less. "You saw it." "I felt it," she said. It shook the ground like a giant took a step. Cal studied her. "You're not from around here." "No," she agreed. A miner nearby muttered, "You sure talk like you know things." Lark glanced over, still smiling. "I do." The miner looked away. Cal leaned forward. "Why tell me?" Lark's eyes shifted to his vest, where his badge outline sometimes showed when the lamplight hit right. "Because you're going to go looking, and because you won't make it far without help." Cal didn't like that either. I've been making it far my whole life. Sure, Lark said gently, but not into this. Cal's jaw tightened. What is this? For the first time, her smile softened, not smaller, just less playful. A game with rules you don't know yet. Cal sat back. Then teach me. Lark's smile returned like sunrise. Straight to business, I like that. She reached into her jacket and placed a small object on the table. It looked like a coin at first, but the surface was layered with tiny moving lines like an insect wing caught under glass. Cal stared. What is that? A locator, she said. It points toward what fell. Cal didn't touch it yet. And you just give it away, Lark laughed softly. I'm not giving it away, I'm offering a partnership. Cal's eyes narrowed. What do you want? To get there first, she said. Why? She leaned closer and lowered her voice. Because something else is already searching. Cal's chest went cold. What kind of something? Lark paused, as if choosing words. Not human, not exactly. Cal looked around the saloon. No one was listening close enough to catch the details, but everyone could sense the shift. Cal kept his voice steady. If you're trying to scare me, it won't work. Lark's smile didn't fade. I'm not trying to scare you, cowboy. I'm trying to keep you alive. Cal held her gaze. Fine, if I go at sunrise. You can come, but you follow my rules. Lark nodded quickly. Fair. Cal finally touched the locator coin. It was warm, like it had been sitting in sunlight even though it hadn't. The moving lines on it reacted to his skin, shifting into a pattern like an arrow. It pointed west. Cal stood. We'll need supplies. Lark stood too, smooth as a shadow. Already arranged. Cal blinked. Arranged how? She smiled again, playful. Never underestimate a wild one. Cal didn't answer, but he felt the truth of her words like a weight. Lark wasn't just confident, she was prepared. And that made Cal more wary than impressed. Outside, the sky was deep orange fading to purple. Cal stepped out of the saloon with Lark beside him. The wind had grown colder, scraping across the street like a warning. As they walked toward the general store, Cal noticed something that made his hand drift closer to his holster. A man stood across the street near the water tower. He wore a long coat too heavy for the weather. His face was mostly hidden by a scarf, but his eyes reflected the dying light in a strange way, too pale, too still. He wasn't looking at the street. He was looking at Lark. Lark noticed too. Her steps didn't change, but her smile vanished in one clean motion, replaced by calm focus. Cal murmured, "Friend of yours?" "No," she said quietly, "not a friend." The man lifted a hand, not waving, more like signaling. Lark's fingers brushed the metallic charm at her collar. It pulsed once faintly like a heartbeat made of light. Cal's pulse jumped. The man turned and walked away, disappearing behind the feed store. Cal exhaled. Who was that? Lark looked toward where he'd gone. A scout. For what? For the thing that fell, she said. And for me? Cal frowned. Why you? Lark didn't answer right away. She led him into the general store where lanterns glowed behind dusty glass. The store owner, an old woman with sharp eyes, nodded at Lark like she had been expecting her. Without a word, she slid a pack across the counter. Food, water filters, field wraps, a small battery lantern, and something else. A slim metal rod wrapped in cloth. Cal pointed. What's that? Lark unwrapped the cloth just enough to show a silver handle with strange markings. A cutter, she said, for fences you can't see. Cal stared. You're telling me there are fences out there that are invisible. Lark met his eyes. Her voice was soft but firm. I'm telling you the desert has secrets and some of them bite. Cal took a slow breath and nodded once. All right. They left the store with packs on their backs. The sky had gone dark now, full of stars. But Cal noticed something wrong. One cluster of stars seemed to shimmer like it was behind glass. Lark followed his gaze. That, she said, is not a star. Cal's throat tightened. Then what is it? Lark's smile returned, but it was different now, less playful, more fierce. It's what comes next, she said, and in that moment Cal understood he wasn't chasing a simple crash site. He was riding into a story bigger than the frontier, bigger than any law, and the wild one beside him already knew how it ended, unless Cal proved he could change it. Morning came slow over Red Hollow, the sky turning pale gold as the sun climbed over the distant mesas. The desert felt quiet, but not peaceful. It was the kind of quiet that made a person listen harder. Cal Hart checked the saddle straps on his horse while Lark adjusted the pack on hers. She moved quickly like someone used to travel, but there was something else about her movements, a sharp awareness, as if she was always counting distance and escape routes. Cal noticed everything. You didn't sleep much, he said without looking at her. Lark gave a small shrug. Sleep is easier when no one is hunting you. Cal paused. You sure they are? She smiled faintly. I don't guess about danger. Cal nodded once. That was answer enough. They rode out just as the sun cleared the horizon, leaving the town behind. Red Hollow grew smaller until it became only a memory against the open land. The locator coin rested in Cal's hand as he rode. The moving lines inside it shifted slowly, pointing west toward the mesas. Every few minutes he checked it, making sure they stayed on course. For a while, neither of them spoke. The desert stretched wide, dry grass bending in the wind, rocky ridges rising like broken teeth. Dust lifted beneath the horses' hooves, drifting away behind them. Finally, Cal broke the silence. You said something fell that wasn't an accident. What was it? Lark watched the horizon. A ship. Cal nodded slowly. He had expected that answer. What kind? He asked. She hesitated. Not from your frontier roots, not from any colony you know. Cal frowned. You mean alien. She didn't respond right away, but her silence said enough. Cal adjusted his hat. And why do you care so much about it? Lark's expression softened for a moment. Because it carries something dangerous. That's not very specific. It's not supposed to be, she said gently. Cal let it go for now. He had learned long ago that pushing too hard too early only made people close up. They rode for hours. The sun climbed higher, heat settling over the land. Around midday, the air began to feel strange, heavier somehow, like the desert itself was holding its breath. Lark slowed her horse. Do you feel that? Cal nodded. Pressure. She looked around carefully. We're getting close. The terrain changed as they approached the mesas. The ground became darker, scattered with glass-like fragments that reflected sunlight in sharp flashes. Cal leaned down and picked up a piece. It felt smooth but warm. Looks like melted rock, he said. Lark watched him closely. Energy burn, something hit the ground hard. Cal's pulse quickened. They were close now. The locator coin vibrated slightly in his hand, the lines inside moving faster. Suddenly, the horses stopped. Not by command, by instinct. Cal lifted his head. The wind had died completely. Silence. Then a faint hum. It came from somewhere ahead, low and steady like a distant engine. Lark slid off her horse quietly. We walk from here. Cal followed, leading the horses behind them. Each step felt heavier, like they were moving through unseen water. As they reached the edge of a ridge, Lark raised a hand, signaling him to stop. Below them lay a wide crater carved into the desert floor. At its center rested something massive and broken. The ship. Its shape was smooth and curved, metallic, but not like any metal Cal had seen. Parts of it glowed faintly blue, and thin streams of smoke drifted into the sky. Around it, the ground looked burned, as if the desert had been turned inside out. Cal exhaled slowly. Well, that's not frontier tech. Lark's eyes darkened. No. They stood there for a moment, taking it in. Then Cal noticed movement near the ship, figures, 3 of them walking slowly around the wreckage. Cal narrowed his eyes. Company, Lark stiffened. Scouts. The same kind from town, she nodded once. Cal studied the figures. Their movements were precise, almost mechanical. They wore dark coats, and something about the way they walked felt wrong, too smooth, too controlled. They don't look human, Cal muttered. They're not fully, Lark said quietly. Cal turned toward her. Explain. She hesitated, then spoke quickly. They are trackers, built to follow signals to retrieve lost technology. They don't stop until the job is done. And that job includes you? She didn't answer directly. Cal sighed. Figures. He checked his revolver but kept it low. How do we get past them? Lark pulled the slim metal rod from her pack, the cutter she had shown earlier. We don't go around, she said. We go through. Cal raised an eyebrow. Through what? She pointed toward a faint shimmer in the air just ahead of them. Cal squinted. At first he saw nothing. Then slowly the air bent strangely like heat rising from sand. Invisible fence, he guessed. Lark nodded. A perimeter shield, it hides the real entrance. She activated the cutter. A soft blue line extended from its tip, humming quietly. Stay close, she said. She pressed the cutter against the shimmering air. Light rippled outward, forming a doorway just wide enough for them to slip through. Cal felt a strange chill as he stepped across the threshold, like walking through cold mist. Inside, the hum grew louder. The scouts below continued searching, unaware of them. Cal leaned closer to Lark. What's inside that ship that's worth all this? Lark's voice dropped to a whisper. A core. What kind of core? The kind that can change worlds, she said. Cal's jaw tightened. That sounded like trouble on a scale bigger than he liked. They began descending the ridge carefully, using rocks for cover. Halfway down, one of the scouts suddenly stopped moving. Its head turned slowly, toward them. Cal froze. "Did it see us?" he whispered. Lark's eyes widened. "No, it shouldn't be able to." The scout tilted its head, scanning the air. Then it took one step in their direction. Cal's hand tightened on his revolver. Lark grabbed his arm gently. "Wait!" The scout paused, then turned away again, resuming its patrol. Cal exhaled quietly. "That was close." Lark nodded, but her face showed concern. "They're adapting," she said softly. "We need to move faster." They reached the edge of the crater. Up close, the ship looked even larger, its surface covered in glowing symbols that shifted slowly like living light. A section of the hull had split open, revealing a dark passage inside. Cal looked at Lark. "After you," she smiled faintly. "Cowboys first." Cal shook his head but stepped forward anyway. As he crossed into the ship, the air changed again, cooler, cleaner, filled with a faint scent like rain. Lights flickered along the walls as if reacting to their presence. Lark followed close behind. "This place is still alive," she whispered. Cal nodded slowly. "Feels like it." Somewhere deep inside the ship, something moved, not the scouts outside, something else. Cal glanced back at Lark. "You ready?" She smiled, not playful this time, but brave. "I was born ready," she said, and together they stepped deeper into the unknown, unaware that the ship had already begun to awaken around them. The inside of the ship felt nothing like the desert outside. Cool air moved softly through hidden vents, carrying a faint metallic smell mixed with something clean and unfamiliar. The walls curved smoothly around Cal and Lark, glowing with soft blue light that shifted whenever they moved closer. It felt less like walking through a machine and more like walking inside something alive. Cal stepped carefully, boots echoing lightly against the smooth floor. "Feels like it's watching us," he said quietly. Lark nodded. "It probably is." The corridor stretched ahead, branching into several paths. Strange symbols moved slowly along the walls like drifting constellations. Cal didn't understand them, but they gave him the uneasy feeling of being studied. He stopped near a junction. "Which way?" Lark pulled out the locator coin. The moving lines inside spun slowly before settling into a narrow arrow pointing deeper into the ship. "That way," she said. They moved forward, keeping close to the walls. Every step felt heavier with tension. After a few minutes, Cal noticed something strange. The ship seemed to respond to Lark differently. Lights brightened when she passed, and certain panels opened slightly as if recognizing her. He glanced at her. "You've been on one of these before." It wasn't a question. Lark hesitated but didn't deny it. "Something like this, yes," Cal sighed softly. "You keep saying half answers." "I know," she said gently. "I just need the right moment." Cal didn't push. Trust took time. The corridor opened into a large chamber filled with broken equipment and scattered debris. The crash had clearly shaken this part of the ship. Sparks flickered from a damaged console, and pieces of metal lay across the floor like fallen branches. In the center stood a tall pillar of light, faint but steady. Cal stared. "That the core?" Lark shook her head. "No, just a power relay." She walked toward it slowly, studying the glow. Her face softened with recognition. "This ship is older than I thought," she murmured. Before Cal could ask more, a sound echoed behind them. Footsteps, slow, heavy. They turned at the same time. One of the scouts stood at the entrance to the chamber. Up close, it looked even less human. Its movements were smooth but unnatural, and faint lines of light ran beneath its skin like wires. Cal's hand moved toward his revolver. The scout tilted its head, studying them. Then it spoke. "Target located." Its voice was calm, almost polite. Lark stepped forward slightly. "We don't want trouble." The scout ignored her words, its eyes focused on her collar charm. "Priority object detected," it said. "Retrieve." Cal stepped in front of Lark. "That's close enough." The scout raised one arm. A small device unfolded from its wrist, glowing faintly. Cal drew his revolver. "Don't," Lark whispered urgently. "Bullets won't stop it." "Got any better ideas?" he asked quietly. Lark quickly scanned the room. Her eyes landed on the damaged relay pillar. "Distract it," she said. "Just a few seconds." Cal nodded once. He stepped forward, raising his revolver but not firing. "Hey," he called calmly. "You ever heard of personal space?" The scout moved toward him with steady steps. Cal backed away slowly, leading it toward the relay pillar. His heart pounded, but his movements stayed controlled. Years of experience kept panic away. The scout's arm, device charged, light building along its edges. "Now!" Lark shouted. She ran toward the relay and slammed the cutter against its surface. Sparks burst outward as the blade sliced into the glowing structure. The chamber lights flickered wildly. A loud pulse of energy exploded through the room. The scout froze mid-step, its movement stuttering. Cal jumped aside as it staggered. Lark grabbed his arm. "Run." They rushed through another corridor as alarms began echoing through the ship, low tones that felt more like warning than anger. Cal glanced back. "You just woke the whole place." "I know," she said, breath quick, "but we needed time." They turned a corner and entered a long hallway filled with suspended lights. At the far end stood a large circular door. The locator coin vibrated strongly now, almost pulling toward it. "That's the core chamber," Lark said. Cal slowed. "Before we go in, you start explaining." She stopped, turning to face him. For the first time since they met, her confident smile faded completely. "My name isn't just Lark," she said quietly. "I'm a runner, someone trained to transport dangerous technology before the wrong people get it." Cal folded his arms. "And the charm," she touched it gently, "a key, it allows me to access certain systems. And the core," her eyes held his, "it's a living power source, not alive like a person, but aware. It chooses who it responds to." Cal absorbed that slowly. "And it chose you." "Yes," she said softly, "but the trackers want to control it. If they do, they could control entire planets." Cal exhaled. That sounded bigger than anything he had planned to face. "You should have told me sooner." "I wanted to," she said. "But trust is hard when you don't know who to trust." Cal studied her face. He saw honesty there and fear. Finally, he nodded once. "All right, we finish this together." Her smile returned, small but genuine. They approached the circular door. As Lark placed her hand near it, the charm on her collar glowed brightly. The door responded instantly, opening with a smooth, silent motion. Inside, the chamber was vast. At its center floated a sphere of pure light, swirling slowly like a captured star. Energy pulsed gently from it, filling the room with warmth. Cal stared in awe. "That's something." "The core," Lark said quietly. As they stepped closer, the light shifted, reacting to their presence. Soft waves of color moved across its surface. Then the ship's voice echoed through the chamber, calm, clear, and gentle. "Authorized presence detected." Cal froze. "Did it just talk?" Lark nodded slowly. But before they could move further, the sound of footsteps echoed behind them again. More scouts, several this time. Cal turned, revolver ready. Lark's eyes hardened. "They found us faster than I expected." The scouts stepped into the chamber, forming a line between them and the exit. "Transfer core authorization," one said calmly. Cal glanced at Lark. "Looks like talking time is over." She nodded. The glowing sphere brightened suddenly, filling the room with intense light. The ship's voice spoke again. "Decision required." Cal felt the weight of the moment pressing down on them. Whatever happened next would change everything. And for the first time since he met her, Lark's confident smile returned fully. "Now," she whispered, "you're going to see why they call me a wild one." Light filled the core chamber like a rising sunrise, warm and powerful. The glowing sphere floated silently at the center, its energy pulsing slowly as if it had a heartbeat. Cal stood beside Lark, revolver steady in his hand, while the line of scouts moved closer step by step. Their movements were calm, precise, and unstoppable. "Transfer core authorization," one repeated in its smooth voice. Cal glanced sideways at Lark. "Any last-minute plans you forgot to mention?" She smiled slightly, that wild confidence returning to her eyes. "I always have a plan, but it only works if you trust me." Cal didn't hesitate. "You got it." The sphere of light reacted to their voices, brightening again. The ship's calm voice echoed through the chamber. "Decision required. Primary user must select directive." Lark stepped forward slowly. The scouts followed, matching her pace, arms lifting as their devices began to glow. "Stop!" one commanded. Lark ignored it. She walked straight toward the core, her hand reaching toward the swirling light. Cal moved beside her, placing himself between her and the scouts. He didn't fire his revolver, not yet, but he made it clear he wouldn't move aside. The scouts paused briefly, calculating. "You cannot protect her," one said. Cal smirked faintly. "Funny thing about cowboys, we don't give up easy." The core pulsed brighter. Lark closed her eyes for a moment as if listening to something only she could hear. The charm at her collar glowed intensely, matching the rhythm of the sphere. The ship's voice spoke again. "User recognized, awaiting command." Lark opened her eyes. They reflected the light like stars. "We need to leave," she whispered to Cal, "but first we make sure no one else controls this." The scouts stepped closer. "Final warning," one said. Cal fired a shot not at the scout but at the floor near its feet. Sparks flew, forcing it to pause. "That was the warning," he said calmly. Lark reached forward and placed her hand against the light. The chamber shook. Energy surged outward, sending waves of warmth across the room. The walls brightened and the ship's systems awakened fully. Panels opened along the sides, revealing glowing pathways and shifting symbols. "Directive accepted," the ship said. The scouts reacted instantly, moving faster. Cal fired again, aiming to slow them. His shots didn't destroy them, but they staggered slightly, buying precious seconds. "What did you do?" he asked. Lark's voice trembled slightly, but her smile stayed steady. "I told it to move." Outside the chamber, deep engines began to hum, low and powerful. The ship was waking. The scouts lunged forward together. Cal stepped back, grabbing Lark's arm. "Time to go." A new doorway opened behind them automatically, light guiding their path. They ran. The corridor shifted around them, panels sliding aside to create a clear escape route. Behind them, the scouts chased relentlessly, their footsteps echoing through the ship. "Can they stop the ship?" Cal asked between breaths. "Only if they reach the core again," Lark replied. They turned a corner as the ship tilted slightly, lifting from the ground. Dust fell from above, and distant sounds of metal moving echoed through the hull. Cal grinned despite the danger. "Well, I've ridden horses and trains, never ridden a starship before." Lark laughed softly. "First time for everything." They reached an open ramp leading outside. The desert stretched below them, glowing under the rising ship. The crater trembled as the vessel slowly lifted into the air. Cal pulled Lark toward a side platform just as a scout appeared behind them, faster than the others. It reached for her collar charm. Cal stepped forward instantly, blocking it. The scout's arm device charged, light building rapidly. Cal knew he didn't have time for careful thinking. He grabbed the cutter from Lark's belt and swung it toward the scout's arm. The blade of energy sliced cleanly, sparks exploding outward. The scout staggered back, systems flickering. Lark grabbed Cal's hand. "Jump!" They leaped off the ramp together, rolling across the desert sand as the ship rose higher above them. Cal coughed, pushing himself up and looking at the sky. The ship hovered for a moment, glowing like a second sun. Then it turned smoothly and shot upward, disappearing into the clouds in a streak of light. Silence returned to the desert. Cal lay back against the warm sand, breathing hard. "Well," he said after a moment, "that was different." Lark sat beside him, watching the empty sky, her expression mixed relief and sadness. "It's safe now," she said softly. "It will find a place where no one can misuse it." Cal nodded slowly. "Guess that means your job is done," she smiled faintly. "For now." They sat quietly for a while. The wind returned, carrying the familiar sounds of the desert. Without the ship's presence, everything felt calmer. Finally, Cal stood and offered her a hand. She took it, rising easily. "So what happens next?" he asked. Lark looked toward the distant horizon. "I keep moving," she said. "That's what runners do." Cal studied her face. "And if a cowboy asked you to stay a while?" She tilted her head, considering. The playful smile returned slowly. "Maybe," she said, "but only if he understands that wild ones don't belong in cages." Cal chuckled. "Good thing I don't build cages." They walked back toward their horses together, the desert stretching endless around them. As they rode toward Red Hollow, Cal felt something had changed inside him. The frontier suddenly felt bigger, full of hidden stories and impossible things. Beside him, Lark rode easily, her eyes scanning the horizon like someone always ready for the next adventure. "Never underestimate a wild one," she said softly. Cal smiled under his hat. "I won't make that mistake again." The sun dipped lower, painting the sky in gold and red as two riders crossed the open land, a cowboy and a wild traveler, heading toward whatever story waited next.